Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds, and welcome to my book garden. I'm Rosebud Reads. I'm so happy that you're here today, either now or later, This is the fourth of book three. Had to double check. Book 3 of The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish, and these are some, I know I said this last time, but I kind of thought it was this time when I said that. These are some of my absolute favorite chapters of pretty much this whole series. So I am very excited for tonight. And hello, Cookielicious. Hello, Momo's Rover. And hello, Annika. How are you all doing today? You're so excited for this week's chapter. Hi, Chi-Chi Kiki. Welcome. I had to remember what day it was. How was everyone's weekend? Very busy weekend. I went to a celebration of life, a baptism, same day, Saturday. Then I went to a birthday celebration at a friend's house Sunday. I got tattooed on Friday. I had another birthday celebration Monday afternoon. It's been a crazy week, but all those are good things. Everything went well. I am in love with my new tattoo, which is adorable. Just a little guy. Yeah. Monday was rough, but we made it through, and I am so excited to be here. A number of things actually also came in the mail this weekend, or today. A lot of things came today that I'm so excited to share with you all. Oh yeah, this is not sponsored. The only thing I own is my time and this physical copy right back there. This is a chill stream. I will be talking to the book. I will be talking to the chat. I will be talking to myself. If that's not really your thing, I'm sorry. But maybe stay and see what's up. And if you still don't like it, I totally get it. It's not for everyone. But you never know. You might enjoy it. I will do my best on pronunciations. This book, thankfully, is pretty easy on it. But I'm not fluent. I'm just me. And also, we have 95 subscribers now, and I am super excited about that. We are still creeping closer to getting that cosplay cameo read through once we reach 100, and that will be great. Hello, Peacock Pages. How you doing? How was your weekend? Welcome. I have so much on my brain. I'm like, I've got all this stuff here that I'm excited to show, and I feel like I'm forgetting something. Just devastated overkill to love. I do not recommend anyone watch it because it has left me traumatized. I just started the first episode. Don't say that. I don't want anyone to suffer. Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish will make me feel better for sure. It definitely will. These chapters are great. It looked pretty good. I'm guessing it's pretty heartbreaking though. So thank you for the heads up. Very much so. Had a good weekend. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm apparently having a brain fart, so we're going to get into what cool things arrived this weekend. Surprisingly enough, we'll start small and go down to big. No, it's okay, Cookielicious. Like, all good. I prefer to have a little warning, just so I'm not like, ah! But here's our first surprise. Look what arrived before, like, anything else, even though I ordered it, like, midway through. Like, whoever's selling this one, apparently, like, I swear they said this was pre-order. our boy, Nan Shizui. But like he came first, so there we go. Focus. I'm trying here. Maybe this will work. Go in front of my face. Thank you. He's so cute. He's just a little happy boy. So he's gonna go back by his parents. We will pop him right here. And just chill by his parents. His little stare is so adorable. He really is cute. Another thing that arrived today that I'm going to open with you all is the Copper Coins Special Edition. I'm excited to read this. I'm not exactly sure when I will read this, but I'm excited by the premise. So it's a monk, a ghost, and a dragon walk into a manor, which is always a good way to start a novel. Under the pale glow of dawn, Xue Shan, once a mighty dragon, now a handmade paper effigy, is moments away from being exorcised. The worst part? He doesn't see it coming. Spellbound into his form alongside the ever-irritating Jiang Xingying, a restless ghost caught up in the dragon's misfortunes, the two must navigate a perilous path to settle long-standing scores. Enter Xuan Min, an enigmatic monk drawn to the ruins of Jiang Manor by the lingering traces of a sinister curse. Finding two crude paper figures he surmises to be evil spirits, he tosses them into his pouch, taking the dragon and ghost along for the ride. Furious at his new predicament, Xue Xian swears revenge. If he must suffer this journey, he'll make sure the aloof monk suffers right alongside him. Thus begins an unusual pilgrimage, where three unlikely companions, an exiled dragon, a restless ghost, and a monk without a past, must unravel the tangled mysteries of their fates. But yes, I have not seen the special edition art yet, but yeah, gotta love it when they start off with a joke. Okay, so once again, this is the cover. Come on. Here's the cover, which is already looking really nice. And then here's the first kind of like bookmark or like postcard. There we go. That's cool. And then we have somebody that's looking very love-struck right there. Like I don't know who's who, but apparently it's like a combo picture because he's holding this one's hair. So it's like this. That's cute. Oh, there's like a folding screen one, which like all of them are hot. And then we, of course, have the sticker page. I love the little ghosty boy up here. He looks so offended to be, like, there. So offended and disgusted. All these faces are hilarious. I don't know who this guy down here is, but I love him already. And then, of course, we have the bookmarks. Come on. Focus for me. There's that side. And then there's that side. I love that he's got the paper man. Oh, did I forget something? Nope, that's the sticker page. But yeah, I thought I'd share that with you all. Now, the thing that I have been waiting for and potentially thought got lost in the mail because it would not give me any updates is I finally got Lanwenji Kitty from Plus Shop. And I thought I'd open it with you all because I got it yesterday. And yes, I also love when the books come with bookmarks. It's very helpful. Where did I put my knife? Oh, there it is. So it was a very busy package weekend. But yeah, is anyone doing anything? I know it's still September, but anybody planning special cosplays or anything else for October? So here he comes. These things are so much bigger than they advertise on their website. Like, this is huge. Oh, his hair's all frizzled. Like, I know he needs to, like, puff up, but, like, his face is all squished. His ears, oh, his poor ears, they're all squished. Oh, hopefully he will puff up. Oh, that's so cool, Cookielicious. Oh, I bet you always loved Halloween, huh? Happy, well, I guess it's not almost birthday, but like, happy future birthday. Oh, and his ribbon's actually a ribbon. That's kind of cool. He definitely needs a little, like, scooching and floofing. Wait, what is this? Oh, okay, it's just fluff. I was like, did something get on this already? Like, my goodness. But yes. Ooh. I actually am planning to do a Witch Wei Wuxian, like, kind of like Foxian. Kind of, not quite thirst trap, but like bougie girl, Witch Wei Wuxian. I'm gonna now put him next to his husband, where he'll be happiest. But yeah, I agree. He's so cute, right? I've got a hat coming. Your favorite place to be, right next to your husband. There we go. Ooh. The heating pack back here. Right? Well, that's purposely why I'm doing Wei Wuxian for Halloween, because Wei Wuxian's birthday is actually October 31st. So I thought at the very least I have to do him one of the convention days. Plus he's a favorite. Oh my gosh, all my stuff is getting stuck. That foot is still a little sore. It's on and off days, but today I was chasing after one of my kids to help get them in off playground, and have you guys know those like single steps at different levels? Well, one was kind of high and my left ankle buckled and I fell again. So I wasn't kidding about that mind like bull, body like China. I think it's okay. We'll see tomorrow when I'm walking around. Gravity has I don't know if it likes me or not, but it's definitely aware of me. Yeah, my nemesis too. Thankfully, the playground itself is like that squishy, like not astroturfy stuff, but like recycled plastic. So like I wasn't falling on concrete. I got really bad ankles. Thank you. You all are so sweet. Oh, I remember what I forgot. I forgot to do our book our fanfic recommendations. So the first one for Scum Villain, is there's a little warning because, the premise is, yeah, oh my gosh, we updated this one this year, and they added like this rope climbing wall that is 10 feet tall. And I'm like, we've already had one kid fall off it, like right onto his back. And I'm like, oh, nurse came out and everything. And it was a little stressful, not gonna lie. It's like, that's why. Why would you do this? But kids will be kids, I guess. It's not my choice of playground, but at least they added a fence around it this time. So I'll take it. So this one that I picked for Scum Villain is What's Wrong with Shen Qing Chu by Cherry Cho. Oh god, literally all concrete. You're just asking for kids to break something at that point. Break skin. Oh man, I'm sorry. But anyway, the fanfic is actually from Lu Bingyi's point of view. And it's where Shen Qing Cho decides that no matter what, he's not pushing Lu Bingyi into the endless abyss, and thus is putting his affairs in order. And so Bingha, in Bingha fashion, misunderstands, but still somehow ends up at somewhat of a right conclusion in the end. But it also has the implication of Shen Qing Cho ending his own life. And I know that can be triggering for some people. So if that is something that may affect you, please don't read it. It's really good, like as Momar's Rover says, like it's fantastic, but it also has some sensitive topics that could be sensitive to some people because Lo Binga thinks that Shen Qing Cho is like purposely putting his affair in order, which he is, but not for the reason he suspects. But yeah. So the actual summary of this is, instead of hardening his heart, Shen Qing Chu realizes he can't bear to toss his beloved White Lotus into hell and resolves to let the system kill him at the edge of the abyss. Bearing this in mind, he starts to make preparations for his impending death, and Lu Bingha notices. He also manages to draw a dozen incorrect conclusions that somehow lead to the correct solution. So it is resolved, but there's some sensitive discussion. Yes, it's very interesting. It's a really interesting take into a what if situation, which if you haven't noticed, I love what if situations for fanfic. But yeah, I felt like it really needed to be said if that's something that you're affected by. Like, be very careful when reading it because that topic does come up. For the Modao Zushi recommendation, I picked Shichen, and it's the first in a series because I love finding series because it's just more goodness packed in. But it's the first in the Red Ribbon series by Bassett Fanwork, and right, this was also when I was on my grandfather one Rohan kick. It's still A really good one. But this is actually a closer interpretation to how Rohan would actually react to finding lost kin by Wuxian. It's not as sane as the other one Rohan recommendation I made, where he's a little more level-headed. This one's a little more bloodthirsty of him, so I feel like it's a little closer to his actual character representation. But it's a collection of works from the Wei Ying is Wen Rohan's grandson universe. And it's not necessarily Jian Clan friendly. Jing Guanshan is also his own warning. So the real description from the whole grouping for Red Ribbon is Wen Rohan is not a good person, but he is a great grandfather. And he is definitely not the worst among the clan leaders. So it's basically redemption for all the Wens, except Wen Chao. Wen Chao is rotten to the core, which, like, I support that every single time. So the summary for Shichen in particular is the cultivation world is no stranger to gossip. From the minor clans to the major clans, there was an implicit belief that they were superior to ordinary people, even those who ran the country from Imperial City. Some cultivators could attain immortality and become gods. They could fly on swords, subdue living creatures with music, and survive for long periods without food through meditation. But they were still human, and it was human nature to prosper by meddling in other people's affairs. This gossip in particular had the potential to spread and ignite like a broken lantern thrown into a pool of oil. The lucky ones had witnessed the highlights live. The others would complain for a long time that they had missed such a spectacle. And to think that it all started with a simple hair ribbon. When Wei Ying is 12 years old, the Jian clan hold a discussion conference at Lotus Pier. All the clans attend, including the Wens. All goes well until Wen Rohan notices the red ribbon in Wei Ying's hair. And that's the end of the official description. It's pretty cool. They are continuing to update with more little tales in the series, so you have something to look forward to as well with the series. It's not complete. It has a good number of shorter fanfics. They're not one-shots, but you could get through them pretty quickly. But they're good reads. And with that, I will mark down the time. Actually, I will blow my nose first. Had like this persistent like nasal thing going on, where it's like not a cold, it's just like seasonal something. Ugh. Okay, scooch this over, move you over so you guys can hear me a little better. There we go. I'll enlarge this so I can see you better. Okay. Oh, hang on. Turn you around the right way. There we go. Okay. So, we will be starting at 24:15. I say, let me write that down real quick. Oh, I just had a pen. The second I put things down, they just go poof. All right, 24:30. All right. So last time we were reading, we found out that the system had a quest where Liu needs to be protected, where he will switch between a merman and a Manmer for 3 days, where merman are human on top and fish on bottom. Manmers are the opposite, fish on top and human on bottom. In other words, in this quest, he will become half human, half fish, but also not a human and not a fish. It was so over. Now he was going to seem even more like a carp spirit. It was fine if he would just turn into a fish. If he turned into a merman or manmer, he'd be lucky to get Prince Jing to stay in the room with him, let alone protect him. In Legend of the White Snake, the half-human, half-snake Yao had scared the scholar to death. Did anyone want to read more about that? Liu forced himself to calm down. If he accidentally pressed accept because he was shaking, he might immediately turn into a creature that was neither human nor fish. He only had one chance to complete this quest, so it was probably best to warn Prince Jing first. He wanted to succeed, of course. Once he did, his happy future was waiting for him. Liu exited the system. Once he found a good opportunity to turn human, he asked in a quiet voice, "Your Highness, I have a tribulation I need to get through. Can you help me?" Okay, so since it didn't mention that, Prince Jing is the one who has to protect Liu this time for 3 days without anyone else seeing him. And for the reason they're doing this tribulation is to turn Liu back into a human full time. So this is supposed to be like the last quest. For that to happen. And so he's obviously worried that Prince Jing is going to be horrified by this, which we all know is not true because Prince Jing is so down bad for his fish husband-wife spirit. But poor baby, innocent Liu, who doesn't realize his husband loves him no matter how fishy he is. Yep, he liked him even when he was a fish. And not in that way. But, you know. Oh, yes. And the yeet count in book 3 is 2 yeets, while the sob count is currently sitting at 9. So, chapter 96, Fishy Tribulation. Because Liu kept the system a secret and pretended he was a carp spirit, when he explained what was going on to Prince Jing, he framed it as a tribulation. Essentially, he had to pick a time to go through this tribulation, lasting around 3 days. He'd be in a half-human, half-fish state, and needed Prince Jing's protection and care. Prince Jing listened quietly, holding his hand tightly as Liu recounted the task quickly. Occasionally, Prince Jing's brow would furrow in thought, but he never let his hand go. "I don't have to go through it immediately," he said, not wanting to put too much pressure on Prince Jing. "We can take it slow and choose somewhere no one will disturb me. But when the time comes, I'll look really weird and I won't be able to move. Please prepare lots of fresh water and food for me, and don't let anyone else see me. That's all." Although the task was protect the pet fish, he'd be turning into something that wasn't quite human and wasn't quite fish. He definitely would be staying inside so he wouldn't put himself in danger. That way, the quest would be a little easier, too. Prince Jing, however, gave it a lot more consideration than him. Picking up a brush and paper, he wrote, "Wait for me for a few days. I'll ensure your safety." Liu read the words over and over again, his chest feeling warm. "Your Highness, don't you want to ask what I'll turn into?" Prince Jing held his hand and smiled. He wrote, "No matter what you look like, you are you." God, he just keeps raising the bar for, like, any partner expectations right there. "All right, then please don't laugh at me when the time comes, Your Highness. Liu said, trying to sound casual. When people were in love, they often hoped to look their best in front of the person they loved. Liu secretly felt like that as well. He'd only just gotten married, and although he wasn't beautiful enough to cause the downfall of a country, he was at least a pretty little cutie. Subconsciously, he didn't want Prince Jing to see him as a weird fish human monstrosity. What matters is you, not the state of you. Right? Being a merman was fine, but if he was a fish on top and human on the bottom, he'd basically be a monster. It was already difficult enough to turn into a fish in front of Prince Jing, and now the system wanted him to be something in between. Time after time, the fish system only got more scammy instead of less. If he wanted to complete this mission and become human for good, he had no other choice, no matter how reluctant he felt. Prince Jing had to be the one to complete this mission. He couldn't just get around it with a lie. Even if Prince Jing had always treated him well, Liu was still uneasy. But just a few words from Prince Jing were enough to chase away all his worries. For a moment, he couldn't control his own emotions. He had to turn around. Don't misunderstand. He only cried when he was sad. Right now, he was just so moved that his throat felt a little uncomfortable. Thinking of all the ways Prince Jing took care of him, Liu thought he should trust him. Perhaps a merman and Manmer would be very scary. Perhaps Prince Jing would be shocked, but he would never let him down. Prince Jing misinterpreted Liu's emotional turmoil, thinking he was worried that his tribulation wouldn't go well. He wrote more. Don't worry, I won't make you wait long. Liu's lips curved up, and he nodded forcefully. Ever since he got together with Prince Jing and they got married, he'd always felt very safe. Now that they'd talked about it, Prince Jing knew Liu had to go through a tribulation, so he made a lot of preparations. The Emperor often mentioned the babies in his letters these days. Although it was just a sentence here or there, Prince Jing suspected his family of 6 wouldn't be stuck at the western border for much longer. But the babies were still young. Even if the Emperor wanted to see them, Prince Jing didn't want them to suffer through traveling. He would at least try to delay until they stopped breastfeeding. Although Xiao Yu said he wasn't in a rush to go through the tribulation, and that they could take their time, he thought it was best if they did it sooner rather than later. It would be better to do it while they were still on the western border, because here he was in charge. He could even make up excuses for Liu getting pregnant and giving birth. If they returned to the capital, there would be many restrictions, and he was worried Xiao Yu's identity would be revealed. As he saw it, these few days right after the wedding were the best time. He'd taken care of most of his work in advance, and no one would disturb him while he was on this break. But if he and Xiao Yu went to deal with this tribulation, they would have to leave the kids to Wang Shi. Luckily, Yi Qinghuan hadn't left yet, so they could at least conscript him to help. I'm sure Wang Shi would be totally heartbroken to be babysitting. So heartbroken. At Luofeng village, apart from the residence of the village head had prepared for Prince Jing. Let me start that over. That was awful. At Lufeng village, apart from the residence the village head had prepared for Prince Jing, Wang Shi had also secretly purchased a few different properties just in case. Prince Jing picked one that was not far from the regular residence. It was connected via a secret tunnel, making it perfect for this situation. If anything were to happen, he could return quickly. With the location chosen, Prince Jing told Liu his plans. Liu was shocked at how fastidious Prince Jing was. He was rather embarrassed. He'd only thought of preparing food and water, but Prince Jing had thought about where to stay and what to do about the kids. He really didn't have to have anything to add. Liu didn't need to worry about anything. That's nice.
Prince Jing secretly ordered the house to be cleaned out and prepared as soon as possible, then ordered Auntie Shu to prepare lots of Liu's favorite foods. Altogether, the human and fish food took up an entire cart. Never mind 3 days, they were prepared for 30. Prince Jing was the person who commanded the most authority and respect in the western border. He didn't need to let anyone know where he was taking his consort. But he still had to give everyone other than Wang Shi and Yi Qinghuan an explanation. His first thought was to pretend to go hunting, but he rarely hunted even when he was in the capital. So this excuse was a little bit flimsy. Liu wanted to help. He suddenly had an idea. The honeymoon excuse. Your Highness, where I'm from, after they get married, people usually have a honeymoon, which is when the newlyweds go on a trip to have fun and relax. Liu thought he'd lost a great opportunity. Why did he have to be so honest and tell Prince Jing the quest would take 3 days? He should have said it would take longer so they could have had more time together in their own little world. The scammer. Prince Jing fully believed him about the honeymoon, though, and relayed the information to Yi Qinghuan and Wang Shi. When Wang Gonggong found out His Highness and the consort were going somewhere alone, he couldn't be happier. There were already 4 young masters. Perhaps this time they could return with a few new young ladies. He's like, yeah, go get busy. Wang Gonggong happily agreed and immediately used what he'd just learned to wish His Highness and the consort a happy honeymoon. He just wants all the grandkids. He's the most grandfather-coded person. Yeah. Yi Qinghuan was not so happy. Yi Shizi, who had been recruited to work, said with a fierce expression, "Why do I have to take care of your children for you while you go on your honeymoon?" Prince Jing glanced at Wang Shi, and Wang Shi laughed. "Shizi, His Highness says letting you take care of them is a way of showing you respect." "Bullshit," Yi Qinghuan said. "I came to drink your marriage wine. I'm a guest. How can you make a guest work for you? Either way, you have to let me come along during the honeymoon." Prince Jing glared at him judgmentally. Xiao Yu had said honeymoons were for couples. Those who wanted to interrupt a couple's honeymoon were what Xiao Yu had called wheels. He told him about third wheeling. That's great. It didn't matter whether or not Yi Qinghuan agreed. When the time came, Prince Jing left with Liu, and the 4 kids were handed to Yi Qinghuan. The fish babies couldn't speak or move right now, but they could listen. Through various conversations, they figured out their dads were leaving and were handing them over to Wang Gonggong and Yi Shushu. Sorry. The fish babies were very familiar with Wang Gonggong. When Wang Gonggong was looking after them, all of them were very well behaved. But this was the first time they were meeting Yi Shushu. The babies were never very polite when it came to strangers. It is pretty funny when a modern person explains modern slang in books like this. And the kids kind of being little brats to strangers is also kind of adorable. Yi Qinghuan was about to become a dad himself. Just because Prince Jing was rude didn't mean Yi Shizi couldn't take good care of the kids. But he'd only just met these 3 chubby babies who all looked like But he'd only just met these 3 chubby babies who all looked a lot like younger Prince Jing, so it took a long time before he finally managed to differentiate Da Bao, Air Bao, and San Bao. Of the 3, Air Bao and San Bao started crying as soon as they saw him, giving him a headache. Da Bao's expression remained serious. Yi Qinghuan had been beaten up by little chubs when he was young. For a moment, he thought he was looking at the real deal and felt a little fear in his heart. He touched his nose, feeling like he was thinking too much, but then his eyes met the judgmental gaze of this child. "What's going on? I want to beat him up." But Yishizi was an adult. He couldn't harm a defenseless baby who didn't know anything, so nothing ended up happening. That's kind of, he had PTSD from baby chubs. Yi Qinghuan picked up Erbao and Sanbao, then stuffed Dabao into his arms as well, his movements clumsy. He took this opportunity to practice. Soon, his own child would be born, after all. Yi Qinghuan touched the three children's heads and couldn't help but smile. Oh, there was also Sibao. He looked a lot like Liu and didn't seem as mischievous as the other three. He was always smiling brightly. Sibao, call me Shushu. Yi Qinghuan got excited, pinching Sibao on one tender cheek. What a classic example of bullying the weak. Sibao remained smiling, then suddenly bit Yi Shizi's hand. Although he had no teeth, his gums left 2 red marks behind. Yi Shizi howled like a banshee. Oh my goodness. Li Yu and Prince Jing soon arrived at the secret residence. Prince Jing wasted no time sending everyone off, leaving only the 2 of them. They had brought plenty of food, and Prince Jing had ordered someone to dig a pond in the garden. It was filled with clear water, and they had brought the fish tank along as well. Your Highness, Liu announced, I am going to start. Prince Jing grabbed him and pulled out a silk pouch, handing it to Liu. What's this? Liu asked. Prince Jing was always finding new gifts to give him. Prince Jing gestured for him to open it, so Liu did. Inside lay an old protective charm and a note. The note described where the protective charm came from. This was the protective charm Empress Xiaohui had gotten for Prince Jing before he was born. This was technically something she had passed down to him, so Prince Jing had kept it safe ever since and had never worn it. The night before he came to the western border, he'd made sure to ask someone to bring the charm to Liao Ran for him to bless. It had all been for this moment. Tribulations for Yao were usually very dangerous. Prince Jing firmly believed that this protective charm would keep Liu safe. Your Highness, thank you. Liu sniffled and hung the charm around his neck. His emotions were complicated. He knew very well that he wasn't going through any tribulation, and this charm was just a piece of paper. Even if anything did happen, the charm would be completely useless. But now all of Prince Jing's trust and sincerity would be concentrated in this charm, all because of a white lie that he had told. He knew he'd had no other choice, but he still felt regretful at this moment. It was time to start. Prince Jing nodded at him slightly. Liu made one last request. Your Highness, can you turn around? He didn't know what he was going to look like. He had to give both Prince Jing and himself a bit of a buffer. Prince Jing was always very understanding when it came to him, and he immediately turned around as asked. Liu gritted his teeth and quietly entered the system. When the system asked him if he'd like to start the quest, he chose yes without hesitating. Something abruptly occurred to him. The system said he would appear as a Manmer or Merman, one after another. Which would be first? When Li Yu came to again, he felt surrounded by coldness. His face felt a little itchy, and when he looked down, his feet and legs were all accounted for. Liu thought he hadn't changed yet, but when he opened his mouth, he found that he couldn't speak. When he took another look, he realized his hands had turned into fins. That was when he realized the quest had already started. It was different from his fish form. His fish form was a whole fish, and was much smaller than a human. But right now, his legs and feet were still human, meaning he hadn't changed in size, but his hands... he was a Manmer. The bottom half was human and the top half was... Liu immediately tried to cover his face, but his fins were too short. Soon he could no longer breathe. Even though he was half human and half fish, the fish top still needed water. Liu didn't even dare to look at himself, let alone tell Prince Jing to turn around. He quickly used his foot to hook over a piece of cloth he'd prepared beforehand and tried to cover up his top half. With the cloth draped over his fish head, Liu ran into the garden and threw himself into the water. Even if he had faith in Prince Jing, he still didn't want... Sob. He didn't dare look at himself, so he wanted Prince Jing to see him even less. It's one sob. Bringing us up to 10. I imagine there's going to be quite a number more. But before that... Ta-da! He is not super happy right now. Can kind of see his little booty. Right down here. Right down here. Or here. Little booty. The actual picture that was in the bookmark for the final edition was pretty funny, and it's got his booty on display. Hang on, I have a picture of it real quick, so you can get the full view. Here it is. This is, let me turn down the brightness. Does it help if I turn up the brightness? Oh, hang on. There we go. Yeah, no, it's great. The other side has him in mermaid form, and then this one has him with his booty out. Nope, it wasn't a joke, Chi-Chi Kiki. And I am super excited that you're getting the special edition, Annika. And I also love that bookmark, Cookielicious. Anyway. Oh, that's great. Prince Jing heard a splash, and Liu was already in the water. What happened? Prince Jing stood by the pond for a while, not sure what had happened to Liu. The pond here wasn't as deep as the one in Prince Jing's manor. On the shore, Prince Jing could vaguely make out Liu's form. He realized that Xiao Yu didn't seem to have fully transformed. Considering Liu had suffered a cold the last time he hid at the bottom of the pool and refused to come out, Prince Jing was worried that he would catch one this time as well. Soon, he decided to get into the water too. Just as he was about to take off his outer robe, the water rippled and the person in the water came to the surface. Xiao Yu? Prince Jing was very worried. Liu was standing in the water silently, his upper half completely wrapped in the cloth. There were 2 holes in the cloth. Liu looked at Prince Jing out of them. Sob, Your Highness, don't come closer. That's number 2. Neither of them could speak. Liu watched Prince Jing nervously. As soon as the prince took a step forward, he would take one back. After a few repeats of this, Prince Jing could tell he was avoiding him. Prince Jing thought for a moment, then reached out to pull Liu out of the water. Liu was about to reach back for him out of habit, but his fins had only just peeked out a little when he remembered he couldn't reach and immediately shrank back. Prince Jing had good eyesight and had already spotted the hidden fin. He was stunned at first, but after a moment he figured out why Xiao Yu had to cover his face and upper body. It was a little surprising, Prince Jing coughed slightly. How was he going to comfort Xiao Yu if he wouldn't let him get close? Looking around, Prince Jing spotted a bamboo stick. Liu noticed it as well. He and Prince Jing had to communicate somehow. Perhaps they could use this bamboo stick to pass along messages? Liu waited for him eagerly, but then, as he watched, Prince Jing cut off half of his sleeve, tied it to the bamboo stick, and slowly brought the stick closer to him. The sleeve on the bamboo stick lightly caressed the top of his head. This movement... Liu froze. It was like Prince Jing was gently touching his head, the same way he'd done countless times before. Oh, my heart. Ah! Chapter 97, Merman Play. You bastard! Do you think you're fishing? Liu giggled at the method Prince Jing had chosen to pat him. He paused, then used his fin to grab the corner of the sleeve on the bamboo pole. Prince Jing tried to pull the bamboo pole back, and Liu moved with it to stop in front of him. Prince Jing wasn't fishing, but Liu was hooked. Prince Jing let go of the bamboo pole and reached his hand out. This time, Liu gave up his shiny, fat, short fins, and Prince Jing held them without any hesitation. Prince Jing patted his fins. Don't be afraid. This was something Prince Jing did often, so there was no way Liu could misunderstand him. Dummy, Liu thought to himself. Isn't it obvious? I'm afraid that you'll be afraid. He stopped hiding and leapt into Prince Jing's arms, the cloth still over his head. In Manmer form, it was easy for his upper body to get dehydrated, but his legs and feet were still very agile. Prince Jing was afraid that he wouldn't be able to breathe, so he stayed with Liu in the water. Liu swam around occasionally. A Manmer usually relied on their fins and feet to tread water. But since the water wasn't very deep, Liu was lazy and just walked in the water with his feet. He was really taking neither fish nor fowl to the extreme. Liu walked around in the water playfully and even childishly splashed water onto Prince Jing before stomping on Prince Jing's feet and then trying to make his escape. But Prince Jing expressionlessly grabbed his ankles and dragged him back. This position made Liu recognize the danger he was in. Though his upper body was that of a fish, his lower body was still a human's. He still had all the right parts. Oh no. Would he incite Prince Jing into an animalistic fervor towards his pitiful, weak, and helpless self if he struggled? No thanks. A Manmer was way too much of a turnoff, and Liu was afraid he might throw up even thinking about it. He didn't dare to move or think carelessly, so he just leaned against Prince Jing with the cloth still covering his head. Hugging was okay, but his cloth couldn't come off. Liu's mind was racing with thoughts, but Prince Jing seemed determined to stay with him through his trial. As if he knew that Liu didn't want his fish face to be seen, as long as Liu didn't try to take off the cloth, Prince Jing didn't try to force anything and treated him normally. Liu thus barely managed to maintain his image. The first day passed uneventfully, and Liu fell asleep in Prince Jing's arms. When he woke up, he realized that he was still covered with the cloth and that it was the next day. The first thing he did was look down at his hands. The mission was supposed to last for 3 days, and he would switch forms during this time. The appearance of his hands was all important. He was more experienced now, and he knew that if his hand was a fin, then he must still be in Manmer form. He hoped he was a merman this time, but even if he was a Manmer again, Prince Jing would protect him, so he didn't need to worry about anything. It was easy to be disappointed if one's hopes were too high. Liu didn't want to be disappointed, so he only allowed himself a tiny bit of hope and took a quick glance. Now that it was the next day, he saw that his short fins were gone. Before him was a pair of hands with proper fingers. Liu suppressed his excitement and tried to clutch his hands. After he made sure he wasn't dreaming, he used those hands to rub his face aggressively. His face hurt, and there were no more scales. Liu happily tossed the cloth to the side and took in lungfuls of air. Since his face and hands were both human, then he was definitely a merman this time. Liu looked down at his legs. As expected, he saw a silver fishtail with gold sprinkled throughout. When he was a fish, he saw his tail all the time and never thought much about it. Now that his fishtail was bigger, though, it seemed a lot more impressive. It was almost as long as his legs, and the whole silver scales started about 3 inches below his navel. The fishtail replaced the legs of his human body, making for a very fetching appearance. The merman form he was in now was more like the merman imagined at first, and thankfully not a dugong. He'd transformed from a food carp into a koi carp and then into a merman. This was really quite... He'd wanted to cry when he was a manmer, but now as a merman, he wanted to laugh loudly. Humans were truly irrational creatures. So I'm going to look up what a dugong looks like. Like, I know, like, the Pokemon dugong. But, like, what is Chinese dugong? Because I'm kind of curious to see, like... Chinese dugong. They're sea cows. Oh! Dugongs are sea cows. So I could see why you wouldn't want to be a dugong. Yeah, like a manatee. Like, it's a little different, but that's very manatee-y. Huh. So they were thought to have inspired tales of mythical mermaids and haven't been in... Yeah, that's cool. I can kind of understand why he would be a little discouraged to look like that. But he'd wanted to cry when he was a manmer, but now as a merman, he wanted to laugh loudly. Humans were truly irrational creatures. Here is his mermaid form. Merman. He is much happier about that one. Much happier. Leo admired his merman reflection in the water and started getting used to his new form. First, he rubbed his own tail. That's right, he'd never pet himself before. A merman could do something a fish couldn't do. So this was how weird petting a fish felt. When he was done stroking it, he tried flapping his tail. His silver tail drew a pretty arc in the water, and even Liu himself was amazed. He wanted to try something out with his merman tail, so he wiggled up onto the shore. He could use his tail as a skateboard when he was a fish, but he wasn't sure yet if a merman could do that. Since his upper half was human, breathing out of the water wasn't a problem. Liu did his best to stand on his tail, but perhaps because his size had changed too much, it was hard to balance. His tail couldn't support his body to walk on the ground. Next, Liu tried to jump. His tail strength was still the same, so he was able to get off the ground, but he was a bit unstable when he landed. Liu took some time to recover, then jumped up again. Even though he couldn't walk, he could move a bit by jumping around. I feel like that's at least one yeet, because he's throwing himself bodily around. So I'm going to say 1, maybe 2. The only inconvenience was that when he was on land for too long, his tail would become dry and sore, similar to chap skin. However, it was much better than being unable to breathe in his Manmer form. He only had to put his tail in the water to alleviate most of the pain. Overall, the merman form was prettier and a much better deal than that Manmer form. Liu happily jumped back and forth from land to water, loud enough that he woke up Prince Jing. Liu saw his feather-like eyelashes tremble slightly and knew that he was close to waking up, so he leaped into the water and hid his tail. As soon as he was awake, Prince Jing saw Liu with his human upper body resting on his arms and looking at him. "Shall you?" Prince Jing smiled, and then patted Liu's head. Liu smiled mischievously, then cocked his head at Prince Jing, and Prince Jing saw a silver and gold tail rush to the surface and rise slowly from the water behind Liu. Surprise flashed across Prince Jing's face for a moment when he realized who the tail belonged to. Xiao Yu had fins and a human lower body before, but now it was flipped. In front of him was a young man, beautiful as always, but his lower body was now a dazzling, splendid tail. Prince Jing had never seen such a scene in his life. So innocent yet seductive, so mysterious and beautiful. This was the most beautiful Yao he had ever seen. Liu had been waiting this entire time for Prince Jing to find out how beautiful mermen were. He thought so himself, and not only did he not want to hide it, he even looked forward to Prince Jing seeing him. He purposely swam slowly around Prince Jing. His tail was soft, and he would occasionally brush past Prince Jing's fingers and hands and feet. Once he was sure that Prince Jing had no plans to run away, devious Yu decided to go all out and wrapped his entire tail around Prince Jing. He'd used to wrap his tail tightly around Prince Jing's fingers, but now he wanted to wrap his tail tightly around his body. How scandalous. Liu had wanted to do this ever since he found out Prince Jing didn't look upon his Manmer form with disdain and was still willing to protect him. Opening his arms, Liu threw them around his husband's neck. "Your Highness, do you like it?" Liu asked softly, leaning in to kiss Prince Jing. Liu's scent was everywhere, in Prince Jing's arms and on his upper lip. He couldn't stand the teasing and could barely control himself. But he remembered that Xiao Yu was in the middle of a tribulation, so he couldn't respond hastily. Instead, with great restraint, he hugged the merman tightly, his ears turning slightly red. He had petted the tail that was encircling him countless times before. To distract himself, Prince Jing tried to pet the tail again. The tip of the tail shivered violently, and to his own surprise, Liu let out an "ah." The tail was actually very sensitive. When he was a fish, petting it just felt comfortable. But when he was a merman, the feeling was amplified several times over. Liu could hear the indecency in his own voice. It wasn't a noise of surprise. It was practically a moan. Prince Jing's whole body stiffened. Because of that light moan, he didn't dare move. His ears turned even redder. Liu was still in his arms and could clearly feel the way he was reacting. His tail began to move, rubbing with persistence. He kissed Prince Jing wetly on his earlobe and whispered in his ear, "Your Highness, do you want it?" This was probably the only time he'd get to be a merman. It would be a waste if they just stared at each other. Sure, he was probably the first fish to want it while completing a mission, but since the system didn't do anything to stop him, it was probably fine. Prince Jing's throat bobbed, staring into the dark, wet eyes of the person in his arms. Who could resist such a sight? But he was still undergoing a tribulation. Liu was afraid that Prince Jing wouldn't be able to come to terms with it, and they'd waste this excellent opportunity, so he wheedled. "Your Highness, it's all right. This is also a part of my tribulation." Prince Jing paused. This was part of it? Yes, Liu smiled naughtily. Yes, I feel this scene would have gone differently if they'd gone the manatee route. I agree with you, Peacock Pages. That's so funny. Oh, yes. Yes, it would have. Yes, Liu smiled naughtily. It's a love tribulation, so a carp spirit has to absorb essence. Prince Jing came back to his senses and held the restless fish. He picked an open spot next to the pond, took off his robes, and laid them out onto the ground. Liu laid down with his tail just close enough to trail into the water so he'd be comfortable no matter how he moved. Your Highness, let me tell you. Liu laid next to Prince Jing's ear, smiling and talking. A fish's structure was different from a human's, but Liu hadn't looked into it much beyond the obvious. Fortunately, Prince Jing was on board to help research the matter, and a whole new world awaited them. Liu's tail was so excited that it started slapping the water loudly. They finally found the right location and did everything they wanted. After the fun, Liu fell asleep. Prince Jing put on a random undershirt, carried him back inside, and wiped off all the gravel on his tail. Gravel, huh? Liu hummed quietly as he was wrapped in a quilt, his eyebrows slightly knitted together. Prince Jing examined his scales closely and found that they were a little dry. He remembered that Liu's tail was very lively earlier when it was in the water, so perhaps his scales were somewhat dehydrated now. Thus, Prince Jing used a wet cloth to continuously wipe his tail. Liu's brows relaxed, and he finally slept soundly. But before the day was over, as night approached, the sudden noise of drums in a crowd could be heard outside. Liu jolted awake on Prince Jing's lap. He was afraid something huge had happened, and he wanted Prince Jing to check it out. But Prince Jing didn't want to. He'd already prepared everything beforehand and had no intention of leaving Xiao Yu's side. Before long, a servant reported that bandits had taken advantage of the commotion surrounding Prince Jing's wedding to attack Luofeng village. The leader of the bandits, who'd suffered several defeats, assumed that Prince Jing would let down his guard during his wedding. Most of the officials and soldiers in Luofeng village were on vacation too. What a heaven-sent chance. A heaven-sent chance indeed. Prince Jing smiled coldly. Liu, who was about to push him to accept the battle, had the sense of the weather is getting colder, so the bandits should die. It's quite a phrase. Oh, man. Chapter 98, Tricked Fishy. Prince Jing handed Liu a secret report. Liu glanced over it and found that the ambush on the village was part of Prince Jing's wedding leave plan. The bandits wanted to attack during Prince Jing's wedding when his guard was down, but Prince Jing had already anticipated this. Luofeng Village's advantage lay in its secret passages. Prince Jing had been there for nearly a year and had been training the local guards to be proficient at using those passages during battle. Prince Jing had given everyone in the village a vacation because of his wedding, making it seem as if everyone's guard was down. In reality, the security in Luofeng Village was relaxed on the outside but alert on the inside. Word had spread that the citizens were gone to visit friends and family, so that the bandits were really thinking about making a move right now. They'd make themselves an easier target. Prince Jing knew that he wouldn't be able to stay on the western border for long, so he wanted to get rid of the bandits as soon as possible so that danger could be fully eliminated. Liu was mostly relieved when he saw all the details on the secret report. As long as Prince Jing was prepared, then a dilettante? Okay. Like himself had nothing to worry about. I guess maybe someone who's just wasting away, or like just a lazy boy. That's my guess based on context. So like someone who's not really involved in it. Come to think of it, Prince Jing had made so many preparations to aid him in his tribulation that there was no way he would have been so negligent as to ignore something as important as defense. Prince Jing comforted him and handed him a note, telling him to be patient and wait for results within 4 hours. Liu nodded. It was almost the last day of his mission, too, so he hoped that the bandits could be caught as soon as possible and nothing unexpected would happen. Outside, a fight was about to start, so he couldn't fall asleep even if he wanted to. Prince Jing hugged him, and Liu leaned against Prince Jing's shoulder. The two of them listened to what was happening outside. "Oh, hello, Esper Lady. Welcome. How you doing? Do you have a good weekend?" You missed a bit. We had the tribulations start. We started on a Manmer. So our buddy here, basically, and he was very upset about it, but Prince Jing was very accepting. And then we are now onto Merman, and there are now bandits causing a ruckus that Prince Jing anticipated. So, thank you. And yes, it is so funny. It's such a funny part. I love it. So this is right now where the bandits are making a ruckus outside, and Prince Jing is like, "Don't worry, I planned for this, sweetie. I got this." Prince Jing comforted him. Comforted him and handed him a note telling him to be patient and wait for results within 4 hours. Liu nodded. It was almost the last day of his mission too, so he hoped that the bandits could be caught as soon as possible and nothing unexpected would happen. Outside, a fight was about to start, so he couldn't fall asleep even if he wanted to. Prince Jing hugged him, and Liu leaned against Prince Jing's shoulder. The two of them listened to what was happening outside. After some time had passed, the sound of children crying could be heard, as if several children were crying at once. Liu's hands shook, and his heart skipped a beat. He thought the crying sounded like Dabao. He and Prince Jing were in a secret residence to complete the mission, but the children had been left in the manor and weren't with them. Earlier, he'd only been thinking of the village's defenses, not his own children. But if a fight were to really break out, would they be in danger? Wang Gonggong and Yi Qinghuan were keeping guard at the residence, but would they be as wary of bandits as Prince Jing was? What if the bandits broke through the defenses and rushed into the manor during the battle? Liu didn't dare keep going down this line of thought. Prince Jing only needed a glance to know that Liu was seriously worried, so he held his hand tightly and gave him a determined look. We're baiting the enemy. Don't fall for it. Wang Shi had been with Prince Jing for many years, and Yi Qinghuan was Prince Jing's cousin. They were both trustworthy. In the very unlikely event that the bandits actually broke into their residence, there were numerous loyal guards who were willing to risk their lives to protect the 4 children. Even without them, Yi Qinghuan was skilled in martial arts, and Wang Shi was meticulous and careful. They were more than enough to protect the children. Prince Jing tried his best to let Liu know that the children weren't in any danger, but the children outside kept wailing, sounding more devastated by the second. That would be hard. That would be really, really hard, especially for a new parent, to hear children crying and, one, not know if it was your kids, but also just to hear children crying and know that they were in a dangerous situation. Like, that's rough. Prince Jing tried his best to let Liu know that the children weren't in any danger, but the children outside kept wailing, sounding more devastated by the second. Liu's heart twisted into a knot. He was already a father. Da Bao, Air Bao, San Bao, and Si Bao were his own flesh, and normally just a single tear from one of his children was absolutely heart-wrenching. Even if the children outside weren't his own, he thought of his children when he heard those cries. Liu held Prince Jing's hand and begged softly, "Your Highness." Prince Jing knew what he wanted. It wasn't unusual for Xiao Yu to lose his composure out of concern for the children, so the easiest way for him to calm down would be to send someone outside to see what was going on and tell them what happened. Prince Jing had actually already sent people to inquire, but they still hadn't come back for some reason. It would be quickest for him to go himself. There wasn't anything wrong with that. Prince Jing was confident in his own skills, even if he encountered some bandits. But he was worried that Xiao Yu's tribulation would be affected. There was still one day to go. He'd heard that the biggest obstacles usually came during the final day. "Your Highness, I promise I'll stay right here and wait for you to come back," Liu pleaded. "Take a look for me, please." If it weren't for the fact that he was half human and half fish, he would probably have already gone himself. Prince Jing couldn't resist him and didn't want him to be disappointed. Surely it should be safe as long as the fish stayed in the residence. On the other hand, he was afraid that Liu wouldn't be able to concentrate and overcome his tribulation if he was afraid and on edge. "I'll be right back," Prince Jing agreed, and after touching the charm on Liu's neck and giving him a token that represented the prince's authority just in case, he strode out. The guards immediately greeted him, and Prince Jing signaled for them to protect the consort, but not to enter and disturb him. Liu watched him leave. After Prince Jing left, it calmed down a bit outside. Liu thought that Prince Jing would be back soon. Sorry. But he waited a little longer, and then a long time. And not only did Prince Jing not return, but the sound of the children crying started up again. What was going on? Had something happened that even Prince Jing couldn't handle? Liu was extremely anxious. Having absolutely no clue what was happening outside only made him more worried. He was also worried for Prince Jing. He should have insisted on going outside with him. But he was still in merman form. Even if he didn't mind it, he couldn't walk outside. Just as that thought crossed his mind, Liu realized that his fishtail was gone and had been replaced by human legs and feet. Somehow, the 3rd day had arrived, and he transformed from a merman back into a Manmer. Turning into a Manmer right now wasn't the worst thing that could have happened. He didn't look as nice as he did as a merman, but he had legs and feet and could move around as he pleased. But a Manmer couldn't breathe air, so he couldn't leave the water for too long. And he might scare others with his appearance if he went out like this. There were a lot of factors to consider. But Prince Jing hadn't returned, so he had no choice but to look for information on his own. He had promised Prince Jing that he wouldn't leave the secret residence, but the situation outside and his husband's safety were more important to him. He wanted to find Prince Jing as soon as possible. Liu's gaze fell on the cloth that he'd thrown to the side. It was a rather large piece of cloth, big enough to cover his upper body and fins. Plus, if he needed water, he still had his inventory and could bring some with him. Liu rummaged through the room and found a fish tank, put it in his inventory, and filled both the fish tank and his inventory with clear water. In case of an emergency, he could take it out and put his head in the fish tank. That's a hilarious image. Liu finished preparing everything and got ready to leave. The guards outside stopped him, but Liu immediately showed them Prince Jing's token. Prince Jing had given it to him so he could protect himself. Right? Like, I'm glad he's preparing for the worst case situation, but that is a hilarious image. Prince Jing had given it to him so he could protect himself. Since he had the token, the guards had no choice but to let him go. Prince Jing had only thought to ask them to protect the consort. He didn't think that the consort would ask to leave himself. The guards obeyed the order and followed Liu closely. Liu didn't scold him. He was the one who insisted on leaving and broke his promise, but he should be safe with the guards watching over him. He saw a good number of people on this outing. Liu followed the sound of crying. He didn't need to go far before he ran into some people dressed as bandits with their heads covered. They were holding something and trying to leave in a panic. Liu's sharp eyes recognized that they were holding a swaddled baby wrapped in a cloth with a gold hem. Liu's heart skipped a beat. He ordered the guards to chase after them. There weren't many bandits, and the guards were extremely skilled, so it didn't take long for them to capture the bandits. Liu felt like he was going to stop breathing, but he still took the swaddled baby from the bandit and looked at it. This child wasn't Da Bao. Liu was surprised and gave the child to a guard to look after. He ran into a corner just out of view, brought out the water in his inventory, and took some time to recover. Just as he put away the fish tank and was about to turn around, a smoke bomb landed at his feet, spewing white smoke. "Oh no! I was tricked!" Liu realized as he fainted. When he woke up again, he was floating in some water with the cloth still wrapped around his head. Before he left, Liu was afraid that the cloth would fall off and he would scare others with his fish face, so he purposely tied a strip of sturdy leather several times around his body, found some cloth strips to hide his fins. Large cloth and cloth strips were still there. Liu remembered that he'd fainted from the white smoke. It was dangerous for him to lose consciousness as a Manmer. Why had he woken up in the water? Had Prince Jing come back to save him? There were voices by his ear. Liu quickly realized that it wasn't Prince Jing, but several other people. From their clothing, they appeared to be a group of bandits. This group was noisy. Liu listened for a while before he figured out what was happening. The bandits had just broken into Lufeng village when they'd been beaten up badly by Prince Jing's ambush. They were going to retreat to their base, but the bandit leader decided to listen to his tactician, who wanted to grab some important hostages from Lufeng village to knock down Prince Jing's confidence. The tactician had come to the western border recently and just joined this group of bandits. Somehow, he'd managed to get the head of the bandits to obey him. Sorry, hang on. Somehow, he had gotten the head of the bandits to obey him, and at a crucial moment on his instruction, the bandit leader didn't just try to escape, but came back to kidnap people instead. The tactician had found babies about a month old and placed them in golden-hemmed, swaddled clothing. Then he had the bandits make the babies cry and make them run around the village to lure people out with their wailing. The bandits didn't really understand why. Why couldn't they just use the children as hostages? Why did they need to lure other people out? The tactician wouldn't explain, just insisted that they should do as they were told. The first time they ran into Prince Jing, he beat the bandits up, and only a couple of them were left. In the end, the bandit leader decided to sacrifice himself and lure Prince Jing away, while the tactician had the rest of the bandits keep trying to lure other people out. But the remaining bandits were confused. When another person came out, they ended up being beaten to a pulp again. The exhausted bandits took the unconscious Liu to a rundown temple. Near the temple, there was a shallow river. Liu's leather strip was thick and hard to break, so the bandits hadn't been able to take off the cloth. Since they couldn't see him or identify him, they could only toss him into the river and hope that he would wake up soon so they could interrogate him. Liu had worked it out now and thought to himself that Prince Jing was right. This was a trap all along, and he'd fallen right into it. The bandit strategists held ill intentions, and they used swaddled babies, a very particular choice. They must have been targeting him and his children, so he and Prince Jing had to be careful. They were separated. Though that initially seemed pretty bad, the guards responsible for guarding him should have realized that he was kidnapped by now. The bandits were dressed conspicuously, and Prince Jing would definitely find him soon. He'd messed up again. He hadn't trusted Prince Jing and had made his own rash decisions. But he had heard a baby's cry. If he were to do it all over again, he would probably make the same choices. Liu couldn't imagine himself being so reckless in the past, but there was nothing he could do about it. He was worried about his children and couldn't just stand by. A father's instincts. Yeah, no, I think him and a lot of other people, when they hear babies cry, react. Slightly morbid fact, there was actually a serial killer that used the sound of a baby crying to lure people out of their house. Which is horrifying. So the serial killer who supposedly used a recording of a baby crying to lure victims was Derek Todd Lee, also known as the Baton Rouge serial killer. However, this is an urban legend and was never confirmed by the police. Okay. All right. So, when I was growing up, my siblings were like, if you ever hear if you ever hear a baby crying outside the house and it's kind of like trailing around, like, do not go out of the house, call the police. Like, they will handle it. Be safe out there. What a society we live in. Anyway, chapter 99, Fishy Punishment. Liu was safe for now as long as he stayed in the river, but he couldn't just wait for Prince Jing to rescue him. If the bandits suddenly decided to deal with him, then it would be too late. At least he now knew that Da Bao and the others weren't in the bandits' hands. Plus, the bandits that caught him didn't know who he was, so they couldn't use him to threaten Prince Jing. Liu comforted himself with this silver lining, forcing himself to calm down a bit and consider the situation carefully. He naturally wanted to escape. Manmers had nimble legs and feet. What if he made a break for it while the bandits were distracted? As he was thinking, a bandit came over and Liu did his best to hide in the water. When the bandit saw him, he swore a bit and reached for Liu. Liu didn't want to be caught, so he kicked out forcefully and managed to connect with the bandit's arm. The bandit, hit unexpectedly, became furious and drew out a sharp knife that he was carrying. Liu started to regret not bringing a weapon with him when he left. He'd been too worried about the chaos outside and didn't think he'd be caught by the bandits. And as a Manmer, he couldn't hold anything anyway. It would be nice if he still had a tail. He'd never wished for a tail so much. His legs were still a bit weaker than a tail, and though the scales on his upper body provided some protection, he wasn't sure if they'd be able to withstand a knife. And his short fins couldn't even reach far enough to slap people. As soon as he thought that, at this critical moment, his body changed again. He'd been a Manmer just now, but his lower body suddenly felt light, as if he had his flowing tail. Liu gently flicked it to confirm the feeling. His tail really was there. Before, he'd stayed one or the other for a whole day, but he didn't think that on the third day the mission would change up the rhythm like this. Good timing. Let's handle the bandits first. The bandits slashed at Liu, but Liu deftly hid in the water. When he couldn't catch him, the bandit rushed into the river angrily, and Liu hid his tail in a dark spot to trip him, making the bandit fall into the water. Before he could get up, Liu lifted his tail up high and slapped it down on the bandit's forehead. The bandit didn't even have time to make a noise before he was knocked unconscious. Liu quickly dragged the unconscious bandit behind a rock. Well, that was nice that he didn't just let him drown. How courteous. If another bandit came to check on him alone, he would deal with him. But if several came at once, he was just a single fish with a single tail and probably wouldn't be able to handle all of them. What's more, his tail could knock a bandit unconscious, but he couldn't escape with it. His goal was still to escape. Wait, Liu had just thought about the advantages of legs when he realized his body had changed again. His tail had once more turned into legs. It was going to change that frequently? When Liu was calm, he was quite clever. He started to analyze all the times he'd transformed today. The first time, he'd turned into a Manmer when he was impatient to run outside to see if Dabao was crying. If it was Dabao crying, sorry. The second time, he'd turned into a merman when the urge to beat up the bandits was strong. Just now, he thought about running away with his legs and turned into a Manmer. So, could he transform at will on the last day? Then he really wanted to transform into a human. Liu waited for a long time, but nothing changed. His fins were still short and stubby, unable to hold or grasp. It looked like he'd been wrong then. When he first started the mission, he'd tried turning into a human, but it didn't work. Since the fish scamming system had essentially banned the skill, it wouldn't just let him turn into a human so easily, right? If he couldn't turn completely into a human, then what about a fish? This time, it was just a casual thought, but his line of sight suddenly dropped, and his height shrunk. Whoa! Seemed like he couldn't just absently think about turning into a fish, because he really would turn into a fish. This fish form was still the original size, too! Liu couldn't believe his luck. The cloth and strips used to cover his body scattered and fell, and he escaped from them easily. Turning into a fish was the best-case scenario right now. Liu hid in the aquatic plants and coldly observed the bandits. There was no way the bandits would guess that their hostage had turned into a fish and hidden in the water. They'd only think that their hostage had somehow escaped. The bandits talked loudly among themselves for a bit, but they finally noticed that their comrade, who'd gone to check on the hostage, hadn't returned for quite some time. They made their way over, loud and cursing, only to see him lying in the river. The cloth and strips that had been wrapped around the hostage were still there, but the hostage himself was gone. What happened? Where did that hostage go? An ill-tempered bandit pulled up the unconscious man and slapped him a few times. The bandit woke up, his eyes unfocused. He obviously hadn't seen a thing when he was knocked unconscious by Liu's tail. What are you just standing around for? Chase after him! Someone shouted, and the bandits all rushed out to find the hostage. Liu held his breath and waited for a bit. One bandit, with his face covered, didn't leave with the rest. Instead, he walked to the riverbank and searched around, but didn't find anything. He didn't give up, though. He squatted and stuck his hand in the river. Liu tried to avoid his wandering hand and inadvertently got a look at it. There was a scar on the man's hand that looked a lot like an animal bite. The man didn't find anything in the river. Just as he was about to stand up, a racket started coming from the rundown temple. The bandits who had run out before came running back, shouting in a panic, "Tactician! It's not looking good! Prince Jing is on his way over!" So, this was the tactician. Liu swung his tail excitedly. His Highness had come so quickly to save him! As soon as the bandits finished speaking, Prince Jing broke into the temple covered in blood. A bandit gritted his teeth and rushed forward with the knife, but was immediately cut down by Prince Jing's sword. Prince Jing had a murderous aura about him, and his eyes were terrifying. He cut down anyone in his way, and very soon the bandits had all fallen. Only the tactician was left standing. He slowly raised his hand. Liu thought he was going to surrender, but without warning and quick as a flash, he threw a smoke bomb. "Your Highness, watch out!" Liu was fearful. The smoke could render one unconscious. He had suffered from it once before and was afraid that Prince Jing would too. Luckily, Prince Jing reacted quickly and knocked the smoke bomb away with his sword. The tactician drew his sword and stepped forward to battle with Prince Jing. Prince Jing fought for a while, but he couldn't gain the upper hand, which made Liu anxious. Why had Prince Jing come to save him without any of his guards? The tactician parried Prince Jing's sword with his own, and when he got closer, threw a handful of white powder at him. "This bastard! How shameless!" He was so anxious that he wanted to turn into a Manmer and run into this disgraceful man to kill him. Prince Jing swayed a bit and lifted his hand to cover his eyes. He seemed to have fallen for the trick. The tactician coldly chuckled, knocking Prince Jing's sword aside, then made a strange move to stab Prince Jing's calf. But although Prince Jing shouldn't have been able to see anything, in one fluid motion he dodged cleanly, swerving behind the tactician, pulled out a dagger from his sleeve and stabbed it into the man's back. Every move was accurate and merciless. The tactician's plot, the attempt to stab Prince Jing in the leg, Prince Jing's dodge and counterattack all happened in a split second. You didn't. The tactician met Prince Jing's dark eyes and suddenly came to his senses. But before he could finish his sentence, Prince Jing twisted the dagger and sent him to meet his maker. Liu had transformed into a Manmer again. He stood up from the river and rushed over like a cannonball to save his husband, only to find that Prince Jing was fine and had even killed the tactician already. Prince Jing had noticed him. With his lips pursed, he strode over to him, getting faster with each step. "Your Highness." Liu closed his eyes instinctively. He wasn't afraid of Prince Jing because he'd killed the bandits. He was afraid that Prince Jing was mad at him. Liu had impulsively left the secret residence. Prince Jing must have gone through a lot to find him. When he saw Prince Jing earlier, he noticed that Prince Jing's face was pale, the corners of his eyes were red, and he looked furious. Prince Jing had never hit him before, but Liu knew that he'd crossed the line this time. I love the image of a Manmer just barreling out of the river like, "That's my man! Don't you dare touch him!" I wonder if he made any noise like whatever fish noises they make when they come out of the water, like that would be hilarious to see. Probably a little terrifying too, just this gigantic fish head coming at you. Like, it would definitely be enough to make you pause, if nothing else. Fish battle cry. Maybe it would sound like a Murloc from World of Warcraft. Liu knew he was in the wrong. He turned into a Manmer again to merman again to apologize. Your Highness, I'm sorry. But he wasn't used to standing on his tail and almost collapsed to the ground. None of his forms were what he wanted, and he felt a bit frustrated. Prince Jing reached a hand out to help him up, then hugged him despite everything. Liu leaned on his shoulder, sniffling, and said apologetically, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have left. But he really hadn't been able to ignore the children's cries. He was a father now, and it was his father's instinct. Even if he knew logically that he should trust Prince Jing and it was most likely a scheme by the bandits, he couldn't just let it go. Sometimes logic couldn't control emotions. Ain't that the truth? Prince Jing and his 4 children were his weak spot, the kind he would go crazy for, the kind where he only realized how ridiculous he was being after his impulsiveness paused. But if he had to do it again, he would make the same decision. Your Highness, it was my fault. You can punish me. Domestic violence was no good, but Liu thought he deserved it. Domestic violence has no place. I don't care what you say. No. Prince Jing shook his head, hugged him with reddened eyes, and shoved something into his hand. Liu looked at it. It was the charm Prince Jing had given him before. When the bandits kidnapped him, the charm had fallen to the ground and Prince Jing found it. Liu gazed into Prince Jing's reddened eyes and lowered his own, embarrassed. Prince Jing looked at him, suddenly took his hand, and wrote on his palm, It's not your fault, it's mine. I was late. No! Liu hurriedly waved his hands. Your Highness came in time to save me. It was my fault. It was my fault that I didn't come back sooner and made you worry. It was my fault, Prince Jing wrote. Your Highness, let's not fight, okay? Liu sniffled emotionally. Why didn't you come back in? Same reason as you. Prince Jing's lips turned into a small curve. Liu blinked and stared at him. After a moment, he understood. Was Prince Jing late because he also thought the bandits had captured Da Bao and he had to go and deal with them? Your Highness, did you also lose control of your emotions and get carried away? Liu asked. Prince Jing nodded. Liu thought to himself, then we really did make the same mistake. With Prince Jing's explanation, Liu felt a lot better. In the future, trust me, I'll take care of it, Prince Jing wrote. Liu smiled and nodded. Okay. Prince Jing didn't mention that he'd run into the head of the bandits and had to fight to the death. The golden swaddle in the bandit's arms hadn't tricked him, but when he returned to the residence, he'd discovered that Xiao Yu was gone. When he found the charm later, he realized that Xiao Yu had been knocked unconscious and kidnapped by the bandits. In that moment, he felt like he'd fallen into hell. Though he seemed calm, he started killing immediately. All the bandits who tormented Xiao Yu needed to die. Oh, I see the tyrants peeking through a little bit here. He didn't know how much longer he would have gone on killing if he hadn't found Xiao Yu. Only when he saw Xiao Yu with his own eyes did the anger in his heart start to dissipate. He really could understand the feeling of losing control that Xiao Yu described. When they finished talking, Prince Jing took off his outer robe, wrapped it around Liu, covered his fishy tail, and picked him up. Everything was ready. The guards waited outside of the rundown temple and were now allowed inside to deal with the rest of the bandits. Prince Jing had entered the temple alone, with the guards outside tasked with killing any bandit that escaped. While the guards were busy with their tasks, Li Yu and Prince Jing secretly returned to their original residence. Li Yu and Prince Jing had just begun to watch the manor from a distance when Wang Shi spotted Prince Jing and intended to run over, but Prince Jing held out his hand to stop him while protecting Li Yu with his other hand. Wang Shi guessed that they were in the middle of something, so he knew better than to disturb them. In their room, Yi Shushu, who was so bored he almost started growing grass on his head, was playing with the children. Yi Qinghuan let Sibao sit in his lap and Erbao and Sanbao lay on his back, while they all made faces at Dabao. Yi Shizi had sworn to make the serious chubby little child laugh out loud, but the other 3 children started laughing first. Dabao thought human life was very difficult and that he would rather be a fish. Don't worry, Prince Jing held Liu's hand. Liu understood what he meant. Prince Jing wanted him to see that the children were fine. He nodded, signaling that he understood. After they watched the children for a bit, Prince Jing looked at Liu and raised his right hand. Was he finally going to be punished? Liu bit his lip and didn't dodge. Prince Jing's hand came down and patted his head softly. Your Highness? Liu looked at him, confused. With the punishment over, Prince Jing curled his lips into a smile. Now, they still had to overcome the tribulation. Alright, I think... No, last 2 chapters. Hang on. So we'll get through this fishy arc, and then we'll be done for tonight. I missed. Oh well. I'll pick it up later. Chapter 100. Woo! 100! Protecting the fish. Li Yu wasn't actually sure how the mission was going. On one hand, the bandits came suddenly and he rushed out in the middle, not caring about anything else. He'd only barely covered himself up, so what would he have done if someone saw him? 100! That's right, Esper Lady. But at the time, he couldn't care less. On the other hand, there had been no notification from the system. From his past experience, this meant the mission was still in progress and he probably hadn't failed it yet. The system had told him before that if he failed a main mission, he'd turn into fish bones and fish ash. Since he could still transform into a Manmer and Merman whenever he wanted and was fine, well, no news was good news. Prince Jing put the charm around Liu's neck again and guarded him for the next couple of hours. During this time, Liu clung to him like an octopus, determined that even if the Heavenly Emperor came knocking, he wouldn't be tricked again. Prince Jing had only punished him by patting his head, which made him even more embarrassed. If it hadn't been for him, Prince Jing would have been able to kill all the bandits in a jiffy. He wanted to make up for all the worry and burden he'd placed on Prince Jing's shoulders. Oh, right, Your Highness. Don't forget to look into the tactician. Liu had heard a lot about the tactician from the bandits. Other than the fact that his face was always covered and his name was a mystery, the tactician also strategically used children and golden swaddles as bait, which was different from the bandit's usual recklessness. He felt the tactician was probably targeting him and Prince Jing. It was well known at the western border that Prince Jing had just gotten 4 little gonzi and that the golden swaddle was only for Dabao. Ordinary people wouldn't use such a color, and it was easy to find out this information if one was interested. The tactician must have asked around beforehand. Liu's suspicion was logical. Prince Jing had thought the same thing. The bandits had been almost completely wiped out in this fight, and the few that were left were the ones who hadn't ventured out. Prince Jing ordered his guards to torture and interrogate them to find out who the tactician was. The tactician felt eerily familiar. Throwing white powder at him, then attacking his leg when he thought he was blinded seemed unnecessary, but in the past, Prince Jing had always kept a dagger hidden in his boot in case of emergencies. He'd brought a dagger this time as well, but he'd placed it in his sleeve during his killing rampage. It was this dagger that he'd ended up counterattacking with. The tactician had attacked the spot where he usually kept daggers. Was he trying to stop him from pulling it out? In any case, the tactician must have been somewhat familiar with him, otherwise he wouldn't have used a baby as bait. But how did he know where the dagger should have been hidden? Apart from this time, he had only used a dagger in public once before, during an assassination attempt where his eyes were affected, after which he was saved by Xiao Yu. It was precisely because of that experience that Prince Jing had become more careful when fighting in close quarters. He'd been able to avoid the smoke bomb in time and even pretended his eyes were injured. The tactician had used powder too, just like before. Since he also knew that Prince Jing had a habit of hiding daggers, Prince Jing had reason to believe the tactician was the one who had attacked him that night. Your Highness, I saw by accident that the tactician had a scar that looked like an animal bite on his hand. Perhaps one from our good doggy boy. Because, you remember, someone did get bit by him. Liu had a piece of evidence. He didn't know if it would be useful, but he might as well say it since he remembered it. As soon as Liu mentioned it, Prince Jing immediately remembered that his attacker in the palace had kept covering his hand as if he was injured. Prince Jing wrote down the events of the day. Liu hadn't realized that there were so many details behind Prince Jing's eye injury. Your Highness, are you thinking that the tactician is the same one who attacked you that day? Liu asked, mulling it over. Prince Jing nodded. On the western border, his only enemies were the bandits. The tactician had only come to the western border a short while ago and hadn't previously been a bandit. That meant he must be from the capital. Liu thought about the scars on the man's hand and the other events of the day that Prince Jing's eyes were injured. It couldn't be just a coincidence, right? Your Highness, remember the day Xiang Fang and I encountered a masked man? The one that tried to poison the fish food. Xiang Fang bit him on the hand. When Liu mentioned Xiang Fang, Prince Jing visibly paused before he realized that Liu was talking about his experience as a fish and that Xiang Fang was Yi Qinghuan's dog. Hearing Xiao Yu suddenly call out another name familiarly had made Prince Jing a little uncomfortable, but he soon managed to turn his attention back to business. So jealous. How dare you say another man's name? The person that poisoned the food had been bitten by Yi Qinghuan's dog, and the tactician had a scar from an animal bite on his hand. It matched. The tactician was from the capital and had run into both of them long ago, as the same person who poisoned the fish food and then turned around to attack him. It is the second prince? Liu asked cautiously. Prince Jing being jealous of the dog is so funny. Yeah, it is. When the masked man poisoned the fish food, the second prince had been plotting against the house of Chang'an and had asked someone to buy arsenic. Prince Jing and Wang Gonggong had thus concluded that the poisoner was sent by the second prince who wanted to vent his anger. But then, the second prince had been under the most suspicion, but the situation was different now. After Prince Jing had dealt with him, the second prince was left confused and mentally broken. How could a person who was out of the running for such a long time still have an accomplice? And for it to be the same masked prisoner? Or poisoner? It didn't make sense. Prince Jing had someone in the second prince's residence keeping an eye on him, and he knew exactly what state Mu Tianxiao was in. So it couldn't be him. That only left one possibility that they hadn't thought of before. That the poisoner had never been sent by the second prince in the first place. The second prince had only taken the blame for the event. If it wasn't the second prince, it could only be the third or sixth prince. In the past, Prince Jing might have suspected the third prince, but right now it was hard for the third prince to even protect himself. The emperor had found out about someone passing messages between the western border and the capital under the third prince's name, and the third prince had suffered for it. Wasn't that quite similar to the way the second prince had been framed? Prince Jing thought for a while, then wrote a 6 that bled through the paper. Xiao Yu had been right. Mu Tianxiao was his biggest enemy, and he'd been secretly plotting against him for so long. So it is him, Liu sighed lightly. Everything could be explained if the devious sixth prince was behind it. The tactician was loyal to the sixth prince. The sixth prince was the only person with time to come out to the west to do something like this. Before, the sixth prince had hidden behind the third prince, and before that, it had been the second prince. If he made a move, nobody would think of this unwanted, invisible person. Now that the sixth prince got rid of the third prince and became the emperor's only adult prince in the capital, he was in the limelight at court, but he was also no longer hidden. He had no shield anymore. Now that he knew it was the sixth prince's doing, Prince Jing wasn't going to hold back. A month later, the people at Prince Jing's manor in the capital received a secret letter from Wang Gonggong. There was only one line on the letter. Teach him a little lesson. They would have to find out who him was through other means. That was how secrets were kept in Prince Jing's manor. These people would follow Prince Jing through hell and high water, but they'd been bored guarding the huge manor. Now that they finally had an order from their master, they immediately flew into action. I love how he just unintentionally or maybe intentionally gave his secret police basically mental stimulation by saying go figure out who I want tormented. Go on, you can do it. I'm glad he's got loyal people behind him, but couldn't you have built him like a rock wall? Soon afterwards, Shang Jing from the Ministry of Works reported to the emperor that the sixth prince had taken bribes while he was in charge of repairs for Zhongshui Palace, switched out quality materials for inferior ones. It's like giving a pet the proper toys, adding enrichment to their enclosure, right? You're not wrong. Mu Tianxiao's expression twisted as he denied it, saying he was just following regulations. Zhang Chang, filled with righteous indignation, countered him and took out the original blueprints of Zhongshui Pavilion. Oh, goodness. Oh, come on. There we go. The Zhongshui Palace that the Six Prince had renovated looked the same, but it was clear the wood used didn't match the plans. Instead, second-grade wood had been used, even for the beams. The Emperor was extremely shocked. He immediately ordered the removal of the beams from Zhongshui Palace for examination and called upon more than a dozen carpenters to inspect it. He was worried that someone might even be framing the Six Prince, so he chose the carpenters himself. But the carpenters confirmed that the wood didn't match the original plans. In actuality, it wasn't the first time the repairs had differed from the blueprints. It could be explained logically if needed, but unfortunately, the numbers the Six Prince had reported to the Emperor and the Ministry of Revenue were based on top-quality wood. The accounts had one price and reality had another. So where had the difference disappeared to? As the supervisor of the project, the Sixth Prince had to have seen what wood was being used. That was part of his responsibility. He simply had no leg left to stand on. He'd just gotten married a month ago. Normally, a prince's wedding was held by the Ministry of Rights. The only exception was Prince Jing, who was in the western border and had the emperor's permission to hold his own wedding. All the other princes' weddings were carried out by the Ministry of Rights, and they were all quite similar. But it was said that the Sixth Prince had given his fiancée, Marquise Dingbei's daughter, quite a few more gifts than usual, which were all added to her dowry and carried to the Sixth Prince's manor. Marquis Dingbai loved to show off and had already made a ruckus about the gifts from his future son-in-law, the prince. Anyone with eyes could see which gifts were the Six Princes' gold and silver jewelry that were considered inauspicious among the pearls, agate, coral, jade, and ivory, which all came in boxes of 2 or more. There were countless ancient books and paintings as well, even though the Sixth Prince had claimed that he couldn't even prepare a decent gift for the Emperor's birthday. That was the problem. How could the Sixth Prince get his hands on so much money within a single year? With the prince's status and salary, he definitely wouldn't be able to afford all this. The Sixth Prince's mother was a palace maid, and her family was poor. That was why he'd always been so poor in the past. Either he'd lied to the emperor during his birthday, or the money came from dishonest means. Some court officials had suspected him before, but the Sixth Prince was the only adult prince by the emperor's side now, and his status had risen rapidly, so the officials weren't inclined to offend him. The possible future emperor. Even Zheng Jing had to think twice before exposing him after he received evidence that the Sixth Prince had accepted bribes. Zheng Qing was extremely familiar with the Sixth Prince's job in the Ministry of Works. When he learned that the wood used for renovating Zhongshui Palace was different from the wood in the plans and that the Sixth Prince had never mentioned such a thing, he knew something was fishy. It didn't take much thought to work out who benefited from this. Zhang Jing ordered people to follow the servants of the Sixth Prince and then remembered that Zhongshui Palace was being renovated. The Sixth Prince had sent servants to pawn off some rosewood boxes. Zhang Jing put in a lot of effort to retrieve them, only to find that they were heirlooms from the imperial merchant who was in charge of wood. That showed where the Sixth Prince's money was coming from. Zhang Jing presented the pawned tickets and the pawned heirlooms as evidence. The emperor interrogated the Sixth Prince, and the Sixth Prince insisted that his confidant had done it behind his back. He said his confidant had taken the money for him, deceived him while he was in charge of the project and substituted the good wood with the bad. The sixth prince didn't suspect him because he trusted him. All in all, he managed to put the blame onto someone else completely. The emperor's expression remained icy cold as he stared at the sixth prince. The sixth prince felt like he had nowhere to hide under the emperor's piercing gaze, but he could only grit his teeth and continue his innocent act. The emperor finally accepted the sixth prince's explanation, but because of this, everyone around the sixth prince was replaced. That was another story, though. Liu was finally at the last stage of protecting the pet fish. The long-awaited system notification sounded, but instead of notifying him whether the mission was completed or not, it asked him to enter the system and check himself. It was a little different from how the fish scamming system usually worked, so Liu felt a bit anxious. He was sort of scared that he'd failed the mission. After making a brief explanation to Prince Jing, Liu entered the system at once. The main mission, postpartum care, was still lit up, and protecting the pet fish step was followed by color-changing small squares that would determine the final outcome. So, this step also required assessment? The mission was for the tyrant to protect his pet fish, the system explained. If the transforming pet fish was found by others, then it would be a fail. I covered myself so they didn't see my real appearance, Liu replied. It shouldn't count as being discovered, right? It doesn't count. But there were 2 bandits who were killed by the tyrant after they saw the user's merman form. The mission can't be classified as a success or a failure. It can only be reassessed based on the tyrant's actions. So dangerous. Liu breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, it didn't count as a failure. He'd been assessed several times before, and Prince Jing always did great. There shouldn't be a problem this time either. Liu stared intently at the small square that would indicate the results. Green meant success, red meant failure. He remembered that the square had turned rainbow-colored once. What would it be this time? The little square changed colors faster and faster until it suddenly stopped. It was yellow. This was such an unexpected color. Thinking about what he and Prince Jing had done during the mission, Liu couldn't help but complain. Did the system think he and Prince Jing were too horny? Oh, yellow books. In Chinese, yellow is a euphemism for pornographic material. An erotic book might be referred to as a yellow book. That's funny. Itchy. I love my heating pad, but it makes my back itchy when it's been on for too long. Like, you get the heat rash. Oh, worth it. Last chapter. Chapter 101. Fish Calling His Name. Oh yeah. Lan Wangji just arrived today. We opened him at the beginning of the stream, so if you go back and watch it, there's a couple surprises that came today. Alright, Fish Calling His Name. The system could hear Liu's thoughts and was rendered speechless for a moment because of the user's derailment. I'm glad you look forward to it, Esper Lady. Yellow means a partial pass, the system corrected him. Otherwise, the user might imagine some other strange things on his own. Huh? The tyrant used excessive violence, but it was to save the pet fish. Since the system cannot deny the tyrant's protection of the pet fish, that is the result of the assessment. It was as if this was a test. Prince Jing had answered well at first, but accidentally spilled ink on the paper. Liu had expected that the system would balance the pros and cons, but instead, to his surprise, the system simply disregarded the part of the paper with ink on it. Just graded what was left. Prince Jing was actually the one who made the system, wasn't he? Why was the system always giving him a pass? But thankfully, a partial pass was still a pass. Yes, that's true, the system agreed. However, the reward will also be affected, and you can only receive part of it. User, please accept the reward. Protecting the pet fish was the last step of postpartum care. The system tried to keep him guessing by having the reward appear as a large mystery box. Oh, I'd be so pissed. You said I was done. Liu had been assuming he would be able to turn into a human now, but the reward seemed different from what he had imagined. What would a partial reward be? Could it be that he would turn back into a half human, half fish? That he might as well continue being a fish? The system comforted him, saying, "Please relax, user." Liu accepted the reward cautiously, expecting to be scammed. A dazzling white light enveloped him. When it dissipated, 2 new scales appeared next to the jade scale that allowed him to transform into a human. Liu glanced at the description. The 2 skills were turn into a Manmer and turn into a merman. The duration had also changed. It was now 24 hours, a whole day. It could be used once a day and could also be canceled. So I feel like that's like I'm glad he has 24 hours, but I wonder if like now he kind of lost the skill where it's like you have to pick one. Where you're human, you're manmer, you're merman, or you're fish, but you have to stay that for 24 hours. Because that seems a little too good to be true, the turning into it for 24 hours, because that's a day. So what's to say you don't like just wait a minute and then like restart the process? Because I totally would. Like it's like, oh, let me go use the bathroom for a second. Like it might be a little tedious to reset it, but like sounds pretty good. A whole day. It could be used once a day and could also be canceled. Oh, so it can be canceled. The addition of the 2 new skills meant that the system had given him the ability to transform into different forms. He could transform as he needed, and even though he hadn't fully turned back into a human, transforming once a day for an entire day was basically the same as being fully human again, as long as there weren't any accidents. Okay, so that I should have just kept reading. Got it. As for the other forms, he could turn into a fish to avoid danger, and since the Manmer and Merman forms wouldn't be used daily, he could also have fun with them in the privacy of his room. A merman was a different type of flavor, after all, and he wanted to try it out again. Liu, you kinky bitch. Liu felt that these new skills were somewhat similar to the way he'd continuously changed forms on the 3rd day of the Protecting the Pet Fish mission. During the mission, though, he changed forms too easily, and he'd almost lost control of it. The new skills required him to choose to press the jade scales to use them, which was much more reliable than changing at will. Plus, the jade scales could only be used if Liu was the one to press them. Even though Prince Jing could see them, the skill wouldn't be triggered if he did it. To anyone else, it was basically a tattoo. Yeah, rock on! 2 new skills and a change to the duration of the transformation were the first part of the mystery box of rewards. The mystery box had a second set of rewards represented by a cute fish-shaped symbol. After he collected the first batch of rewards, Liu found that other than the main quest and side quest categories, there was another fish children status that had appeared. What's this for? Does it have to do with Da Bao and the others? Liu asked curiously. Though the children were considered part of Liu's team after they hatched, Liu hadn't experienced any benefits of being on a team. The children were just a few simple fish-shaped symbols, and Liu suspected that they were there for just they were that these were just decorations. Don't know why I struggle with that, but I'm sorry. Since there was now a fish children status, the system asked him to check it out. When it expanded, there were 4 fish children symbols. Liu thought about it for a moment, then pressed the golden symbol that represented Da Bao. A transparent box popped up showing Da Bao sleeping as Wang Gonggang placed a small blanket on him. Thank you, Esper Lady. Was this? Liu's little heart was pounding, and he happily clicked on Sibao. The fish babies were usually doing the same thing at the same time. Since Da Bao was sleeping, so was Sibao. But Sibao was sleeping on Yi Qinghuan's stomach, with Air Bao and San Bao next to him. The 3 children and Yi Qinghuan were fast asleep. Sibao was sleeping soundly, his mouth opening and closing repeatedly. He probably still thought he was a fish and was imagining blowing a bubble. Liu checked on the fish children one by one. He couldn't look away. The system took some time to explain. The user can check the current status of the young fish here. It only works with the ones on your team and can be used up to 3 times a day for each young fish. Liu's eyes lit up with excitement. Wasn't this the fish scamming system's version of a baby monitor? One where you could see the fish babies. He'd fallen into the bandits' trap because he couldn't ascertain the children's safety and acted impulsively. In the end, it was because communication in ancient times was inconvenient. Really, the best you could do was shout. If it could be like the modern world where he came from with well-developed communication tools like the phone, where one could make a quick phone call to see if the children were safe, how could the criminals have taken advantage of him? Though the system hadn't rewarded him with a phone, it gave him the opportunity to see his children whenever he wanted to. Even if there were only 3 chances a day for each child, it was the best reward for a fish father who often worried about his children. Many thanks, system. From the bottom of his heart, Liu was grateful. However, the system had more to say. A user, postpartum care is only partially completed. This was supposed to be the last of the main missions, but since it was only partially completed, the requirements for closing out the main mission have not been met. After the system's assessment, a new main line of missions will be added to make up for it. The rewards that the user was not able to obtain can also be obtained after completing the new main missions. He really wanted to take back his thanks. He'd thought he would be able to become human after completing these missions and could finally escape the system, but he still had to complete Moe Pet System missions. No matter what form you're in, the user is the user. This will definitely be the last main quest line. After completing these missions, there will be no more. The user can choose a side mission to complete as required, and failing the side mission will have no negative consequences. Okay, that sounded pretty good, actually. Liu wanted to be rid of the system because he didn't want to complete missions all the time and worry about failing them. If he could just do missions at his leisure in the future, then it didn't really matter if the system was there or not. Besides, he'd gotten used to the system talking to him and giving him weird power-ups. Since these are all still main missions, you should hurry up and assess, said Liu mischievously. Don't get in the way of me completing missions and receiving rewards. The system seemed bemused. Oh, and one more thing, Liu said, stammering a little. Can the system see Prince Jing and I when Liu was thinking clearly, he was actually pretty smart, even if his reaction time was a little slow, but he was only just considering this issue. There was no privacy with the system. The system was just a system. Liu wasn't worried about it being awkward, but he was worried about Prince Jing's secrets being stored in the system. Would they end up turning into viral videos? So was he watching or watching? The system had nothing to say. The extremely ridiculous user was kicked out. Liu woke up in a great mood. He had lost consciousness every time he entered the system, and this time he'd entered as a merman. When he came to, he was sitting in Prince Jing's arms, carefully protected. The merman form's tail was easily dehydrated, so Liu impatiently turned back into a human. But his timing was a bit off. Originally, his tail had been cutely wrapped around Prince Jing, but when it turned into legs, he was in a weird position that made his imagination run wild. Liu blushed and lowered his legs from around Prince Jing's waist. Then he looked up to meet Prince Jing's eyes. Prince Jing smiled and touched Liu's face. What's wrong? Liu hugged him and nuzzled up to him, unable to control his happiness. Your Highness, I have good news for you. The duration for my human form has been extended, and after one more tribulation, I can return. It suddenly occurred to him that this explanation wasn't quite right. No matter what progress he's made with the missions, he was still a carp spirit to Prince Jing. The carp spirit would want to turn into a human completely, not return to human form. You couldn't get that wrong. You paused and tried again. Next time, if I pass through the next tribulation, I'll be human forever. Prince Jing smiled slightly and nodded. All right, I'll protect you during the next tribulation too. Liu couldn't help but smile. I'm so lucky you're here, Your Highness, he said, and let out a heartfelt sigh. It was all right even if he had to do one more round of missions. His missions would be completed one day, but he didn't know where he'd be now if not for Prince Jing. Liu scooted closer and pulled Prince Jing in. The atmosphere was just right, and the fish was about to kiss him. He exaggeratedly pouted his lips out and kissed Prince Jing's cheek. It was a kiss as light as a feather, making one's heart ripple like water. Prince Jing raised his eyebrows, his lips moving. Do you want to say something, Your Highness? Liu asked. He noticed that Prince Jing's expression was a little different. Prince Jing glanced at him quickly and hesitantly took out a note. He made a random guess, but there really was something? Liu took the note. He was curious about what Prince Jing wrote, but he only saw Prince Jing's name, Tianqi, on it. I know your name, Your Highness? Why did His Highness want him to see this? Seeing that he still didn't understand, Prince Jing took Liu's reddened lips into his and bit down softly when he said, Your Highness. Liu, confused as he was teased, said again, Your Highness? Prince Jing sidled up to him before he finished speaking, and Liu got bitten again. Prince Jing hugged him and bit once more. Liu didn't dare speak anymore and blinked. Was he not allowed to say, Your Highness? He was going to be kissed every time he did? Prince Jing, seeing that he was starting to understand, handed him the note with his name on it again. Liu suddenly got it. No, are you asking me to call you by your name? Prince Jing nodded seriously. He finally got it right! Tears sprang to Liu's eyes. Prince Jing wanted him to call him by his name. This was perfectly normal since they were married now. It just seemed a bit distant to be calling him Your Highness all the time, and Prince Jing didn't want him to be distant. Then, Tianxi, Liu smiled shyly. Prince Jing's name was quite tasteful, so he couldn't help saying it again after the first time. Tianxi! Prince Jing responded, a smile spreading across his face, and he held Liu's hand. It was such a small thing. Why not write it out? Because he wanted Xiao Yu to realize it himself. He didn't want to have to ask for it. If he could say Xiang Fang's name so easily, then why not his too? And that is actually where we leave it for today, on Prince Jing being jealous that Liu said the dog's name and not his own. But for next time, we will be reading chapters 102 through 107. That will be on Thursday. But yeah, I had a great time. These are some of my favorite chapters, and I hope you enjoyed them too. For all the people that are listening later, I hope you had a great time with this. This was a good time for me. I think they're so wholesome, right? I hope you are enjoying listening to the series, watching it maybe. But yeah, I know I am having a great time recording it with all of you. But yeah, Thursday, 8 CST. I will see you there, and hopefully not be as raspy, because I felt like I was super nasally today. But yeah, good night, everyone. Have a great 2 days. Bye.